Queer Young Thing brought to you by Cow in a Cup. Hey, this is Queer Young Thing. My name's Dylan and I'm sitting with some lovely guests today. We are talking about living in the country and being GLBTIQ. I've got Russell, Jess, Steph and Talia. And we're going to be talking about country life. So just to get things started, you've all, I guess, lived predominantly in the country for most of your lives, or in rural environments. Do you know any differences between, like, I guess, city queers and them country queers?
I think people just seem to associate us with Mardi Gras more and think that if you're queer in the country, you wear bright colours, you're punk, you're rebel.
Yeah, because
lesbian,
we're not
you've got to
punks.
have short hair.
The rainbow.
Yeah,
just rainbow.
We just have to wear rainbow constantly.
Yeah. It's like over-the-top stereotypes, do you think? Is that something that you would agree with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think to find that if you're gay, you love everybody of that sex, so you've got to sort of be careful of the gays because they're going to hit on you no matter who you are.
Have you met this person? He's gay.
Yeah.
That's actually a common one, and I think that also doesn't just stem just for the country alone. I think there's some people in the city that also are like that. Like, oh, by the way, my cousin's gay. Do you know them? Like, yeah. We tapped it. Now, do you find any differences between, I guess, country queers and city queers? I think you were telling an interesting story in the green room before, which I thought was quite amusing. Would you like to share?
So in Albury we have a pickup point and it's on the river and you drive up in your car and another person drives up in their car. You flash your lights twice, they flash their lights twice. Then one of you gets out of the car to the other car and that's how you hook up with someone.
And which river's this?
Murray.
The Murray, oh, okay.
Murray River.
Oh, now we know. You heard it first on Queer Young Thing. Now, Russell, give me a rundown of your experience living in the country and being of a... So how do you identify first before we jump into the hard-hitting stuff?
Yeah, gay.
You're gay? Yeah. And how do you find living in the country as a gay man? What are your experiences?
Well, I've only been out since March last year, so it's sort of still all new to me. But
so you're a freshie.
Yeah. Yes. So it's still I'm still learning the ropes, I suppose. I've got friends that I speak to, but I sort of still feel that you can't be exactly who you want to be here in the country. That might be just myself living in a smaller town than Shepparton, because I don't actually live in Shepparton. But yeah, even living in a really small town, everyone seems to know who you are, so you sort of have to be careful what you do, where you go, and everything like that. So.
And is that, do you think that's the same?
Definitely.
Like, okay, yeah. How about you, Talia?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, you can't be exactly who you want to be because everyone knows who you are and they will stereotype you instantly.
What are your experiences as a queer in the country, so to speak, Jess?
Well, I moved from a really small town, Jerilderie, to Shepparton, which is a lot bigger than Jerilderie, and I still didn't tell anybody in Jerilderie till I lived in Shepparton because I was that worried about it. But
really?
My mum, I didn't even tell my mum until I met my now fiancée, Emmy, and she was fine with it straight away. And anyone that does make, the jokes or anything that seem to be made in small towns, my mum deals with it for me, so it's good.
Yeah, that's awesome of your mum to just smack him out. Now, you've lived all up and down, like all across Australia. You've gone from everywhere from like far north Queensland to Brisbane to Albury now. So do you find it's different, like, because obviously no country town is the same. However, there might be some attitudes that could be similar. Do you find that it's different per state, or that like some states might be more encompassing?
Every town I've lived in is different. So in Gladstone, you wouldn't dream of coming out at all because you're so close. It's so country. It's so everyone has the bigger belt buckle sort of thing. You've got to be as rough and tough as you can be. In town,
you think that'd be like okay as like? There's nothing you can't assert yourself. You can't be like a domineering gay person or a domineering trans person. It's just hetero norms.
It's you can't be gay at all. Otherwise,
Really?
people will beat you up.
What, and have any of you ever experienced, I guess, discrimination in the country?
I actually, since coming out, I actually haven't had any negativity at all, which has been quite good, I suppose. you get it on Facebook, not directly aimed at you, but you still get the people stereotyping and stuff like that. But to me personally, I've never had any negativity, which has been good.
Well, that's excellent. How about you, Jess? Have you ever had any? Actually, this is open. Like, has anyone else had any discrimination while living in the country as a queer?
Well, there's only one other person I know that is gay from Jerilderie, one other person, and he doesn't live there anymore, and everyone sort of thought of him as the fairy, you know what I mean? Like, stereotypes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't even know anybody else that's gay, bi, trans in Jerilderie at all. So
And it's not. It wouldn't be as systemic as there are no gays in there. They have to be closeted.
I think so. Like, I wasn't comfortable doing it, so I don't think they would either. It's just not the sort of place where it's not in the open, like ridicule, but it's something that's not spoken about so much.
Okay, and Talia, you are a part of ZAQUE, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I am.
Can you give me a bit of a rundown of what ZAQUE is?
ZAQUE's just an LGBTIQ friendly environment where we support each other through like homophobia and just anything, and we are a close group of people.
Yeah. And what else can you tell us about ZAQUE? Because I love ZAQUE. I think what you guys are great. And I do believe we've got Flo coming up a little bit later on, who's one of the leaders of ZAQUE. And you guys have come up with an app.
Yes, the QueeRy app.
What's the QueeRy app?
It's an application, obviously, that is downloadable on Apple devices. That's got like support mechanisms and like links to Headspace and all this type of things. Like if I wasn't gay, which I'm, word just died. If my friend wanted to know information about my sexuality, they could go onto the application and like just read about it.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's really awesome. And you can, and it's like available now just to get. Is it?
Yep.
My question is, because look, I'm an Android boy. Is there support on the Android for the app?
Not yet.
It's always that way.
We're trying.
Get an iPhone.
No.
Get an iPhone. Set.
But with the app itself, so do people comment on it? Like, can people make their own additions to it?
I think I'm not 100% sure because
Right.
I've been adsin a little bit, but there's Flo's like email address if they want to like contribute to something.
Oh, sweet. Well, I'm pretty sure we can talk to Flo a little bit later
Yes.
on when she's on. You're watching Queer Young Thing. We'll be back in a tick.
My name is Jonathan Bentoncourt. I am 16 and I live in Marupna. And my favourite subjects are music and home echo and pretty much anything creative. If I'm feeling down, playing something like the low notes on my clarinet makes you kind of feel warm and fuzzy. So it's like, oh, okay. At the moment, I'm very happy. I have a partner and he's lovely, and I see him now and then. It's an hour and a bit drive, and it's not like we can see him all the time. But yeah, it's really good.
Hey, welcome back to Queer Young Thing. Today we are talking about all things living in the country and being of the GLBTI community. Right now we're pleased to bring in our guests. We've got Flo from ZAQUE. We have Damien from Uniting Care Cutting Edge, that's quite a mouthful, and Glennis from PFLAG in Shepparton. Now Flo, just before the break, we were having a chat and what came up was the QueeRy app that ZAQUE's brought out. Now, ZAQUE is a community group for GLBTI people out in the Ballarat region.
Yep.
What's QueeRy?
So QueeRy is specifically for iPhone and iPads, Apple devices, mainly because I'm not smart enough to make an Android one yet, but I will make one. And it's got lots of different resources, whether it's for families or for young GLBTI people, probably all GLBTI people really, just that will give them any information that they might need. For anything, but especially for friends and families and schools, there's all the different resources that you can get.
Now, how did you get involved with ZAQUE to begin with?
Well, my best friend came out when he was quite a lot older, and he came out and his family sort of rejected him a bit, and so we found ZAQUE and joined ZAQUE, and just sort of went from there really, and I then became the facilitator. I went in to work on a drama play with them, and then
and now you're running it.
And now I'm running the show, making apps and doing stuff. So.
Yeah, high living. Now, what's probably the most rewarding thing that you've done while being a part of ZAQUE?
Definitely, I think it would be our, the QueeRy app is probably the biggest thing that we've done because it's Australia-wide.
Well, how many people have made an app? Like, I don't even know how to turn on my phone sometimes, let alone actually make an app for it. So that's
I think
astounding.
that's one of our biggest successes. But locally in Ballarat, we go into the schools and do plays about homophobia and anti-bullying, and it's based on forum theatre or theatre of the oppressed. So young people get to come into the scenes and change it around and stop homophobia and stop bullying in front of their in front of their friends and peers and stuff. So it's really quite powerful.
When we found out, it was a bit of a shock, like to any parent, it would be. But it wasn't a big shock because we could see it from when he was a young age.
But verbalising
But when he verbalises it and tells you that, I am gay, it actually feels like a bit of a shock.
And it's not about saying, hey, did you know my son's gay? We don't hide who he is. He's proud enough of himself to tell us, let the community know. So how amazingly great is that he's so comfortable in his own skin to do that. Don't get me wrong, I remember saying silly things like, are you sure?
So Uniting Care Cutting Edge, can you give us a rundown of what that's about?
Sure.
And what you do there as well, that could be important too.
Yeah, I'm the community development worker for the Diversity Project, and that's run through Uniting Care Cutting Edge. And so it's my job to go out to schools and community groups and to support young people right across Greater Shepparton between the ages of 10 and 25 around issues related to same-sex attraction, gender identity and intersex conditions.
Right, that's pretty cool. That's quite a large, they're quite large topics to cover, and especially with people. I guess the biggest thing that I'd probably say that you'd have problems with is, trying to get the kids to listen, or trying to get people who are so entrenched in their ways to listen as well. How do you combat things like that?
I spend time in schools working with teachers as well, equipping them with tools.
Fantastic.
So when the students in the classroom say things like that's so gay or faggot and language that's not acceptable, to be able to help the teachers to target that language. But young people as well, I go in and do sexuality education sessions with them. I talk about things that the stuff you don't talk about in school and really help them have conversations about sexual orientation, about gender, about sex. And I think alongside that, with the youth group we run at Uniting Care Cutting Edge, giving them a safe space to talk about that with their peers really helps as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And helping to break down those barriers, and secondly, starting those conversations, because that's where it all comes from, having that prior knowledge or that education.
Just keep an eye on your kids, if you see them doing things that they don't normally do. For instance, in Jonathan's case, he would just come back from school, go to bed and stay in bed.
Wouldn't play his music.
For him not to play his music, we knew there was something wrong. We knew there was something majorly wrong.
Anis, you're part of one of my favourite organisations, PFLAG. I think PFLAG is an amazing organisation. What's your role within PFLAG?
Well, my role in Shepparton is the coordinator for PFLAG. We had been having meetings monthly. This year, because of lots of other different things that we've been doing, we've sort of cut them back to second monthly, normally on a Monday night. Yeah. And in between that, if there's any other new mums or dads or whoever would like some support, I will ring them up in between our meetings as well. So
just for people who might not be aware, PFLAG is a support group for parents and friends of those who are gay, lesbian, trans. What do you have what are the biggest issues that come up, say, with a new parent who's like, oh my God, my child is gay or a lesbian or trans? What do you do when you step in there to try and say, hey, everything's okay? Well,
quite often, after a little bit of discussion, that new parent or, auntie or whoever it is might ask how my husband and I suppose, got through the situation when we found out that our son was gay. And by relating how we sort of got through that, it helps this new parent.
Oh, absolutely. And I think having a gay child just shows that you're an excellent parent. That's all I'm going to say about that.
We make mistakes. We're not perfect. Elements of a struggle trying to find our own little connection with what was happening. And, we didn't always handle it well.
Terry found this diversity group and thought, well, this is probably what Jonathan is going to need. If the son or daughter can't find where they feel comfortable, I'll probably suggest that it's the parents' job to actually find that for them.
What's probably the most rewarding thing you've got out of being with PFLAG at the moment?
I think it's probably providing that support for people, as well as having the confidence now, my husband and I, to talk about our son being gay, and then letting other people in the community know that we have got a gay son and that there is a PFLAG in Shepparton that people can get in contact with and get that support.
That is sensational. Well, I'm really excited about our next segments. This is where the youth are going to tear it up with our elders. We're going to start asking them questions. We're going to get right into it. You're watching Queer Young Thing. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Queer Young Thing. My name is Dylan and I'm sitting here with some amazing guests and elders, or experts, to talking about living life in the country. Now, Steph, you have a bit of an interesting comment for Glennis. We were just talking about it before. What would you like to say about that?
So how would parents go about finding PFLAG or extra support for them having gay, queer kids?
Okay. Well, there's PFLAG Victoria, and they're on, the internet, of course. And we've also got PFLAG in Shepparton as well. On the internet, you can Google it, we're on Facebook. And PFLAG Victoria, I know they've also got quite a large website, and there's different links on there that people can get onto, and there's also an area that they can ask questions as well. And someone from PFLAG Victoria would get back to them and answer the question. But if anyone wanted to get in contact with me, the PFLAG Shepparton number's actually on the Victorian website as well, and they can ring me on that number and I can get back to them as soon as I can.
One of the hardest things I've done was probably introduce my boyfriend to my parents, especially with my siblings. Hard to explain what he is, and it's just it was a very difficult thing. But I did it.
I've got a question for you, Damien, because you with United Care Cutting Edge, you guys go into schools. How many people in our youth are still in the school system? We got one. Excellent. So say that Talia was having issues in schools. How would people from say a school get in contact?
Yeah, so we have good working relationships with all of the schools across Greater Shepparton. There's an initiative called the Safer Schools Coalition too that we're trying to get a lot of our schools to sign up to. And so because we regularly keep in touch with the school welfare workers, they generally know about our support group, and we also provide one-on-one support where young people need it. So you Google us again, all our details are out there, and we take the time to meet with young people one-on-one if they require support, and then they generally can come along to our fortnightly support group as well. But we're very, very, very available, and our details are out there, and that's what we're there for. So.
Jono bringing Adam home, and it was kind of a fluke really, because he wanted to meet him in town, and we said, it's New Year's and we're doing things, why don't you ask him to come, and he can come to Grandma's as well.
He was also introduced to the rest of my family, such as grandmas, grandpas, cousins, uncles, aunties. Very interesting, and reactions from all of them. They were all very friendly, of course, though.
We're sitting there and Mum said, isn't it nice to see Jono so happy? And to have someone, wasn't it? To have someone that he can relate to, and to see him connected.
That actually understands him.
And wants to be with him, and it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders to know that, he's connected, because he's never really been good with making friends, and the diversity group was so important to him because it gave him those familiarities, it gave him connections that he hadn't been able to find before, that we couldn't find for him. And so when he said, yeah, Mum, can Adam stay, I was, yeah, he can stay. As long as you want him to stay, he can stay.
Well, Flo, you're from Ballarat, and Glenn Damien, you're from Shepparton. Do you know any other resources out there for people not in Shepparton and Ballarat?
Well, it's all on the Queery app.
Oh, it is?
It is. So we've got links to a lot of the, especially more regional and rural groups, but they're on the Queery app. But Way Out, which is on the Queery app, but you can Google Way Out or look them up online, and they will also have different groups and contacts for all of Victoria, regional Victoria. That's where I'd probably send someone if they were in a different area and I didn't know the worker.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Can I add to what I love about the QueeRy app? It has a GPS function, and so if a young person is travelling throughout regional Victoria, they can actually log into their phone and find the nearest local service, which can really be helpful if you're a bit isolated, need to connect, or need some help from an inclusive provider too.
Wow, that's really cool, and I think that's a big thing, because when you were in your hometown, or like where you're living in a rural environment, do you necessarily always feel safe walking around? No. Does anyone ever feel safe, like if you're walking around in? That's quite bizarre. For me, like honestly, I
By yourself?
By yourself, or like in a group of your friends as well, or
Haven't
had an issue.
No.
That's comforting.
Townsville was pretty bad for walking around being gay or queer. My brother had lots of nasty comments thrown at him, and there were fights and all sorts of things.
Wow. So, like, if you don't mind me asking, because it's a bit of a personal subject matter there, Steph, but do you mind expanding on that a little bit?
So my brother came out when I was 12, and I started high school when I was 13. And at school, some girl in my grade was calling him a fairy and all sorts of awful names, and I sort of stuck up for him, and she kept going, and then she took a hit at me, and I swung back, and she ended up stabbing me with a craft knife in the chest.
Wow. So I guess this is, I'm looking at your face there, Damien, and you're like, whoa. If that was a school that you were going into, like, what would you do in that, given that specific scenario?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be on site at the time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But after the fact, the support for the student initially who's been on the receiving end of that homophobic abuse and treatment is the person to put a lot of focus on, make sure that they're okay. Look after them, basically, but then also to address the bullying and the harassment, which is unacceptable. Helping the school then, after you've provided that support, to become a no-tolerance zone for that kind of behaviour is important, and making sure that the punishment is very... everybody's aware that behaviour had consequences and that's unacceptable in our school.
Because that is an absolutely extreme situation. That's hideous that you've had to go through something like that.
In Townsville, things like that, though.
Typical.
My
Wow.
brother got punched in the face for walking out of the gay bar. And my school sort of covered up my being stabbed and just suspended her for bullying.
That's really, really rocked me.
That happen on a TV show.
Yeah. Everyone jokes that my life's a sitcom. And
I wouldn't so much say a sitcom. Sitcoms really have more laughs than that, babe. I'm just gonna throw that one in there for
Drama
Drama
thriller.
It sort of made me a little wary about coming out.
Yeah, understandably.
Well, that's the same sort of thing with parents. You know, when we found out our son was gay, that was one of the sort of things that we thought, would people, in Shepparton or in the Goulburn Valley then target him, or, whoever wanted to bully him or whatever. And that's what we thought too, from a parent's perspective.
Wow, that is a really somber note to close this episode on. But you've been watching Queer Young Thing. This has been all about the country. I think I might stay at home next time, but we'll see you guys next week.